Okay, so just time for a bit of an update on a SDV602 project. Just to give you an idea, of course, here's our report that we'll be submitting shortly. Here are our storyboards. So this was the idea for the game that I originally came up with. As I mentioned in one of my blogs, I actually made a little bit of a boo-boo here because it's basically set up a lot like a Windows form that I would have traditionally used doing C# programming. Of course, because we're in Unity, things are a little bit different, but as it turned out, I was actually able to pretty much recreate this without too much drama, and that was quite an easy option because I did go for really minimal sort of styling. It's kind of more about what we're returning in terms of the gameplay at this stage than making this look fantastic. That would kind of be a further down the track kind of a job to pretty this all up. But yeah, just to give you the idea if that was the original concept. So now if we go into Unity, cool, here we are. So here you can see we've got a few things going on. So just open this one up. This is in fact, this is the equivalent of this beach scene. This is one of the first scenes that the user will start on when they start the game. So here we go. This is sort of how it'll look in the real world. I'm using the 16:9 ratio. I heard that was a good, reliable sort of one to use. You can see we've got a few buttons down here. We've actually added a quit button to the buttons. You can see we originally weren't going to worry, but because we don't have the top bar here with those kind of standardized controls, I thought I don't want my users to get trapped in the game if they want to get out. So of course we've got a quit button, buttons to link off to map page. To give you an idea, map page of course will end up looking like, where are we? Aha, so this is to give you an idea. This is what I hope our map page will end up looking like. So in practice, in game, user will be able to click on this and go directly to the map page, or click on that one and go, where are we? Aha, directly to our inventory. Again, this is not very pretty looking. This is very sort of standard, just essentially basically just a blank canvas for us to list our player's inventory, and we also have a similar one going on. Event logs. So this is one that I'm hoping to implement eventually as well, hopefully before our line, of course. And I just want to record where the player has been, as just as literally as the name suggests, a log of what they've been up to, where they've been, what they've done, maybe some of the items they've found, things like that. So just yeah, I thought that might be a fun, interesting little sort of side to it, and it will of course give me another screen that's going to be outputting a bit of game data as well, so that's good for me. Where are we? Yeah, so there's our first screen. At the moment, not too much happens. These are just static values. They're not going to change at all. We can enter text, whoops, into our text box here and output it directly onto our little output screen here. I have done a couple other little things just to give you an idea. There we go. I've popped in a wee scrolling bar here so we can scroll to keep up. I haven't yet implemented it so that this actually, the viewpoint kind of follows where we're going, though that might be something to implement a little bit later on. I think, to be honest, probably the pressure is on to get actual kind of logic happening in behind the scenes and get a prototype jumping between screens and accepting a bit of user input and displaying a bit of user output. So I'll just shut that down for a sec. But yeah, so there's our beach one, which is going to be our first screen. We also have some scenes. Yes, please. The next screen we would go to after the beach one, the beach one will only be a one directional screen. Next one will be into the mangroves. And so you can see as we go between scenes, we're going to have a different location name on each of our screens in game. Again, everything else remains very much the same. And this is, hopefully this is just kind of taking a bit of the pain out that I can just change the image, change the names, and essentially generate a few of these, and of course in the actual prototype we'll have a decent amount of text here, like a description for the area, and I'm also intending to have a little sort of secondary bit of text, which I'm implementing with the idea of each location. This would be one location, has events that can happen on that location. Those events will be random. Maybe initially I might just have one positive and one negative event, just make it a sort of 50-50. The idea is like maybe your positive event might be, oh, say you find some fruit and you can eat it and gain health points, or maybe a negative event might be you step on a nest of ants and they bite your foot and you lose some health points. So just kind of events like that. I mean, ideally, imagine that the text here might read something along the lines of you see an interesting pile of leaves with some ants around it. What would you like to do? And if you said, oh, search leaves, then oh, bad times. It's full of ants. You just got bitten. Or maybe it would say something like you can smell something that smells like ripe fruit. Oh, okay. Search fruit, and boom, hey, you find some fruit. So, yeah, the idea of each location having just a couple of little events to just add to gameplay, and those being kind of random. So there's a bit of an element of players using their judgment of like, oh, does this sound like a good idea or a bad idea? So yeah, ideally, when we're done here, this will be a description for each location, a body of text here, say event text, I'm calling it at the moment, which will just kind of be that little sort of precursor to an event that the player can use, and a little call to action, which will be, what will you do? So to give you an idea, of course, here we go on the equivalent screen in our storyboard. So yeah, there's the idea of an actual description, which will always be there, that will always remain static. And here's the idea of a changeable little event sort of text. And then of course our call to action that's always going to get our player into text. You will notice I've actually done away with a little compass here, because in reality it's not actually really doing anything. I mean, there's no kind of this is just here for show. It doesn't update. There's no kind of doesn't really relate to gameplay. So it just kind of seemed a redundant waste of space. And so rather than having this little inventory box with a side scroller and stuff, I thought, right, just actually get rid of compass. If our players are feeling a little bit confused about where they are, then they can go to the map screen, of course, map, and then that's going to bring up like an actual screen, like like so, which this will make more sense in this context, actually having a compass here. So yeah, just one of those kind of decisions on the fly, but it seems to make more sense here than it does on the actual screen. And so yeah, and when we've got this implemented, so here's the map screen, the player can see themselves, they move, and then oh, here we go, then they view the map screen again on a different location. Their little icon here has gone to a different location. So yeah, and just jumping back into Unity, so we've got our a beach screen and a mangrove beach location, mangrove location, and these are. I'm just going to build these first two screens for our prototype, and the player can navigate between the two, and that'll just proof of concept of text commands being used to generate navigation between scenes. And so yep, that will hopefully be, jumping between these with like go west, go east sort of a command. Also put in just some basic screens, an event log. Yep, with that idea that I mentioned before of perhaps this is going to, every time we make a text command or we change scene, perhaps we're going to add this to a list, I would say, because it's going to be an expanding sort of value to a list, and then just output these to our event log output text here. And similar kind of deal with inventory. One of our classes will be in charge of an inventory that's going to, again, it will be a list, it will update as our players acquire items, and then when we bring up open up our inventory screen, the idea is that that array is going to output all the items into a nice wee list here that we can just refresh our mind. Again, maybe if I have free time, which never happens, of course, but it would be quite nice to maybe have a little description or ideas for use, or perhaps something like that to just sort of, I don't know, fill out our story a little bit. But anyway, for at this stage, these two screens are event and an inventory, and they're not very exciting to look at, of course. They are just as you'll see, just a plain grey screen. Yep, here we go. But it will do the trick. It'll, show that we've got an outcome here from our user created data of like going around. So yeah, it should do the trick. And again, this is basically just to make sure that let's go back to beach. Yeah, so when we finish up a prototype here and submit it, that hopefully our test user will be able to navigate between this screen and beach and mangroves, and that they'll also be able to take advantage of the inventory and the log buttons here and just jump into their event log and their inventory screens. But yeah, essentially next on the agenda is to sit down and really start to get a bit of logic working in behind these things. Essentially the only thing we have, of course, at the moment is just a little bit of script for text input that's essentially just taking our user's input and spitting it back out as an output sort of thing, which we will be doing that a little bit. Of course, the idea is in the game. Here we go. So you start with a screen, enter text, and when you enter text in the game, here we are. We're going to output that just so you kind of get it in context. What we do, search leaves, and then you're going to have a result to that event which you're kind of jumping into there. So we will be using that, but of course we're going to be returning a lot of other data, and we're always going to be returning our little call to action just to keep our user going. And of course, this is one reason why I've actually gone to the effort of actually getting a sidebar happening here, we side scroller, because the idea that you're on a location and you've got your description text up here. We'll just jump back. So you've got your description text here, and you've got your event text here and your call to action, and then you pop in your user input. Ideally, I'd love for this to kind of track down as well, and of course with the scroll, so that if we say, okay, what are we going to do? We're going to search leaves, and here's our output. What will we do? What if our output was that we actually discovered an item, and then what will we do? Oh, we'll take the item, and then that's going to create more text. And so in a perfect world, and hopefully I'll have this done in the not too distant future, I hope to have the view kind of tracking with the new input that's coming into this sort of output box. But anyway, that's on the dream list and the future implementation list. As I said, probably the hardest thing at this stage is just really getting a bit of a handle on how I'm going to structure all the logic behind it and the classes that I'm going to build. A little bit lost there. But of course, I'll do a bit of research. We'll probably be using various sort of inheritance. I mean, I've already got the idea of a location class, which is going to inherit, locations is going to inherit location. So the idea that, we'll have an abstract locations class that will contain various the sort of methods that all our locations are going to use and the variables that all our locations are going to use, and then we're just going to create instances for our various individual locations. So we're just, that's one. Also probably a player class that again is going to store a lot of methods and methods and such for our player. And you can see we're actually just starting to we're just starting to actually get into a few CRC cards, so I'll revisit this in our next video with hopefully a better idea of where I'm going with that one. So cool. We shall be back.